So I feel like as actors, we give out a lot of different recommendations, talk about the kind of things that have helped us a lot. So I thought I would compile a few of those things together into an actor's favourites kind of video. So we're talking acting podcasts, we're talking books, we're talking drinks, we're talking all sorts of different resources that can just help. And this is so personal to everyone, so what I am personally drawn to, you might not be drawn to, but you might be drawn to it, so you better keep watching and find out what I'm about to talk about. And I'll also talk about like different themes of things as well, so if you want to skip to a specific topic, like my thoughts on various different things that have been helpful for self-tapes, or about, you know what a topic is, if you want to skip to a specific one, they will be linked in the description, various different chapters, in case you want to skip to a specific one. And if you want to help me along with my acting journey and help me on my journey to get 500 subscribers and keep growing this channel, like I'd really like to get to 1,000 one day, that's always been a goal, then please do subscribe because I would really appreciate it, and let's chat about all my different acting things. So the first thing I want to talk about is drinks that I like to use as an actor, and I feel like drinks, like going for a drink, is a nice ritual at certain points as an actor to help you, but also it is all connected to your voice and your body and all these different physical tools that you use as an actor. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about that, and this is so personal as well. But firstly, I've heard water is obviously very important, like staying hydrated is obvious, but drinking a couple hours before is when people say it really then impacts you by the time you actually need to use the hydration, I guess. So drinking 2 pints a couple hours before you're doing something is helpful, which I don't do all the time, but if it's something like I think it would be valuable for, then it's a useful tip and piece of advice. And just staying hydrated generally is obviously important. Another drink I like to have as an actor is green juice, just because I feel like it's quite fresh, and psychologically it makes me feel good to know that I'm getting something green in. Like, I went to an acting course once and the course director was always like, you should be having something green, make sure you're having something green, looking after yourselves. So I just feel like getting my greens in is just something that I think is important to do, and I just quite like it. So it's nice to have that as like a healthy kind of drink. And also I like the ritual of having a coffee. Like, if I'm having a lot of different self-tapes and I'm trying to keep my energy up and I want a little bit of a moment to reset, I can go have a coffee, come back, make myself a coffee and come back. I like the ritual of that. And also before an audition, I like to go have a coffee. Like, I think this might not work for some people, like I feel like it's dependent on the day whether or not caffeine stresses me out, but I feel like I'm usually quite calm actually on an audition day, and I just think it's a nice little calming ritual to be able to take a moment to myself. I love coffee, so being able to go somewhere, sit quietly, have a coffee, have a think, look over any material, I think it's just a really nice habit that I've somehow got into, I think, because I always travel really early to auditions, so having something to do and somewhere to go and somewhere to sit is helpful and something that I like to do. And also, if you're feeling under the weather, a little bit like unwell, like obviously you shouldn't be pushing yourself too much if you're feeling too ill, but these herbal teas I think are really good. Like, I think this one's very good if you're wanting to feel vocally a bit more alive, and this one, like if you're feeling a bit unwell, like it just sort of settles you. And having these, and also the elderberry and echinacea tea is really good if you've got a cold. Something else I'm very glad I've found out about that was very useful and has been very useful to me is if you have access to the Drama Online login, which you can get through your educational institution, is getting access to that, because you get access to so many plays, hundreds, thousands maybe of plays. Like, most plays that you search will be on there, because plays are so expensive to buy and that's not always very accessible to be buying loads of plays. And you can also filter it and like go through a specific playwright's plays, so if there's one that you like but there's not a suitable monologue for you, you can go through their other plays, go through the character lists and find a monologue. And that's how I found my main audition monologue, because it's just really useful to be able to go through all the plays online in that kind of way. And reading plays is also really useful, having access to them, and also use your library as an actor. Like, I had an audition once that was based on a book, so being able to go to the library and get the book for free and be able to read it is just a really useful free resource. But another thing that can also be really expensive, although there are discounts for young people at lots of different theatres, so you can look into that, is going to the theatre. And it's really useful to be able to watch shows, but it's just quite inaccessible sometimes. So what I like to use are theatre streaming platforms, and one that I used is called Marquee TV, and I managed to get a 1-month free trial because I wanted to watch the RSC version of All's Well That Ends Well, because I was doing a monologue from it for an audition, and being able to access plays anyway, and I think being able to watch Shakespeare is helpful, especially with the classical plays, because reading it on a page is very different to seeing it performed, because it's meant to be performed. So bringing it to life sometimes helps with the understanding and connecting to the characters and just feeling more immersed in the story alongside reading the play. And now let's talk about books. And I mean, there's a lot of books that I have as resources that I can dip in and out of, but there's not that many acting books that I've like gone through the whole book consecutively. But this one I have, Hamilton and Me, and I think it's such a good book and so accessible and easy to read in one go, because some of it's just like techniques and it's useful resources, but it's not like a reading book that you'd read at once. But this is so interesting because Hamilton is obviously such a big show, and this is a rehearsal diary about playing the role of Aaron Burr and preparing to play the role of Aaron Burr. And I write such intense notes as well when I'm like doing my acting classes and stuff. So reading someone's rehearsal journal is something that's really interesting, and hearing the truthful account of what it's like to be rehearsing such a big role and hearing about the whole experience of it is so interesting. And also another book similar to it is one that I was actually recommended, An Actor's Life by Jenna Fisher. It's more about the American side of that. I think she was on The Office. I listened to it on audiobook and it was a while ago, but she was on The Office, I think, which I've not actually seen, but I don't think that really matters, because just hearing about her journey pursuing acting and the mistakes that she made and all of these different things about like headshots and materials that she prepared and the journey she's been on is really useful, and hearing those kind of honest accounts is useful as well as just learning the acting. I also love an acting podcast, and I feel like sort of accidentally my interview series has sort of become my own acting podcast, so maybe I'll link that below as well and check that out, and everything that I mentioned will also be linked below. But I feel like podcasts and hearing interviews with actors is quite a helpful way for me personally to engage with different actors' methods and techniques and the way they think about things. And what I personally like to do, rather than just following acting podcasts, which I also do, is I like to, once I finish the show, I will look up all of the actors on Spotify and download all of the different podcasts of them discussing the show, because I feel like sometimes you can listen to it and you can be like, okay, I've not actually seen that, I don't actually know exactly what they're talking about, but being able to hear how they've shot specific scenes that you've just watched is actually a really useful post-show watching thing to do. But one podcast that I do listen to quite consistently is Amber Davis's Call to Stage, because she was on Love Island and then she ended up transitioning into the West End, and she interviews loads of different musical theatre performers, and I just find it so interesting, and almost is more of a kind of comforting insight, because they're so honest about the industry and their experiences. And some people who've been on it have like won an Olivier Award and then not worked for the next year, and that's normal. And I think hearing people who are so successful sharing about their journey and sharing actionable advice as well is really helpful. And there's a few others, so I can link them below as well if you want to check that out, but I can't just keep naming podcasts forever and ever and ever, you'll get sick of me. Something else that I love that's a bit more of a sort of habit, technique, activity is journaling, and I think this is useful for both evaluating how you feel like you've done in a class or in a rehearsal and gaining clarity over your thoughts, evaluating what you've done, helping yourself improve, and reflecting on notes you've been given. As well as that, I think it's just important emotionally in life, because I think it's not often talked about enough, but as actors, we are connecting sometimes with emotions connected to us. We're using our own experiences in work. We're connecting to really deep, intense moments and recreating them and living through these characters, and that's really intense. And I think also sometimes if you've got things that you're not really processing well in your own life, then that can interfere with your acting process. So I think it's just really important for me that I try to keep myself emotionally well, and I think that's important for everyone. So being able to write and journal is really useful, and there's many different ways that you can do that, or just like bullet pointing all of the thoughts that you've got going on, so then you don't feel like they're all going on in your head, and then you feel like you've got more space in your head to be able to just focus on the work. Something else that I want to talk about is self-tapes and what I think you need, because I think there's so many different opinions that go out there and so many different types of equipment that people say, you need this ring light, you need this self-tape background, and that's expensive and that's a lot, and obviously you want your self-tapes to look professional, and everyone will have different ways of approaching it. But I just think that, like, when I got a new phone, a priority was the camera. So making sure that you just have a good phone camera, I think, is enough. Like, I think this phone camera that I've got is clear enough, and I have a plain wall, so I personally don't have a background because I've got a very accessible plain wall, which I think, like, this setup now would be fine for a self-tape. And I also don't use a ring light because I think this lighting that I've got, well, I mean, I'm filming this in the evening, so I've got the lighting, but like in natural daylight it's fine. So personally that's not a focus, but something that is a focus is tops as well. Like, I want to feel comfortable, I want to feel free to be able to move. Also, I'll show you what these tops look like in the self-tape kind of environment on screen as well. But I have this brown shirt that I actually got on a short film that I did, but I feel like that's a bit more formal. It kind of pops well against the wall, and wearing plain colours is useful because otherwise if you have a pattern or something, it's going to mess with the camera and it's going to look a bit weird sometimes if you record it. Like, I filmed for BBC Bite Size before, and in the BBC guidelines they say, like, don't wear any kind of patterns that will show up weird on camera, or like stripes that can be distracting, just wear plain colours. So that's what I tend to therefore go with. So I have this shirt for a bit more of a kind of, it's got a certain vibe to it. And also, looking back over all of my tapes, one of the items of clothing I wear absolutely the most is this kind of burgundy jumper, because I think it gives a little bit of a pop of colour and it's a bit casual, which goes well for the kind of roles that I play, because I go for quite a lot of youthful, not really trying to dress up, not trying to impress anyone, doesn't really care, or maybe it's just quite casual kind of vibe characters. And something else that I think is really valuable with self-tapes is I have a 1 minute monologue cut that I have. Sometimes you get asked for 1.5 minutes as well, so having different cuts of monologues pre-recorded, so that occasionally when you do get self-tapes that are like, we want a 1 minute monologue, you have one to already send off. Like, that is incredibly helpful. And people do that with songs as well. Like, they have takes of songs that they're happy with that they can then just send off, and then that saves so much time because you're not just re-recording it every single time. And some of the songs actually that I found really useful to have prepared that I didn't realise and aren't advertised on these musical theatre courses that are useful songs to have in your rep is having a kind of fun, child-friendly, up-tempo Christmas pop song. Like, that's so useful because around this time of year and late summer, early autumn is when a lot of schools' Christmas shows, Christmas shows, any kind of Christmas show, children's shows, like they're all casting, and loads of them want songs, and lots of them are asking for that vibe of song. But I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas, if you don't know, is a Christmas song, I think from around like the 50s, and it's kind of like a fun, quirky pop song. I think a child sang it when it was released as well. Sorry, I don't have all the facts, but it's sort of quite a fun Christmas song about wanting a hippopotamus for Christmas and imagining having a hippopotamus for Christmas. So I've just taken the fact that I've been asked for that in one audition, and I've used that song in other auditions because I just think it very much gives the fun children's Christmas show vibe. So I think it's a very useful song to have prepared, like having those kind of Christmas show songs is something that people often don't think about, but it's very useful. And as you probably know, there's so much to say about acting resources and also about TV shows and films that you can watch, but I feel like TV and film recommendations are easier to find, so I thought I'd go a bit more into those kind of niche topics. And if you have any recommendations as actors, acting resources, actor thoughts, then please do leave me them in the comments. I'm sure other people would find them useful as well, and it's nice to just have a chat in the comments. But those have been some of the things that I've found especially useful and engaging as resources. So I do really hope that it's been interesting or useful in some kind of way, and thank you so much to everyone for watching. I really do appreciate it. Bye!